muchachos! Welcome here. I'm in my comfy clothes, I have a bottle of water in case my throat gets dry, and I have my phone close by, and that could only mean that I'm answering your guys' questions. So I hopped onto my Instagram a little while back and I asked for you guys to send me in some questions revolving around intimacy and sex, and I wanted to answer them from kind of like a Christian wife point of view. I really enjoy doing these videos and I do want to do more of them. As a Christian woman, I don't see sex being talked about enough in the church, except to stay away from things like music talking about sex and movies talking about sex, but then they don't go ahead and kind of like feed us in the way that we should be fed biblically about sex. They just tell us to kind of stay away from it. And I think sex is everywhere. It is all over the place, and I like creating these videos to kind of counteract, I think, a lot of what the world is saying about sex and just really bring you into my mindset of sex from a biblical point of view. I also get a lot of you just saying that in your area you don't have a lot of Christian friends or a solid church, or you're not even a believer but you just kind of have some interest, and because you don't have certain resources where you're at, these videos are kind of nice to watch, and that's why I'm kind of doing this. I think sex is cool. God created sex and it needs to be talked about, so we're gonna talk about it. I previously filmed this video and I touched on some pretty heavy subjects which YouTube really wasn't too interested in and would have either taken down my video or demonetized me. I like getting paid. This is our income as a family. But I still want to touch on some really awesome things here. So let's go ahead and get started. While you're watching this video, grab some water and drink a lot of water. Let's hydrate ourselves in today's video. Okay, a lot of people are asking, what does a biblical marriage look like for you and Kieran? And then some people were also wondering, what is a biblical view of sex and marriage versus more of a worldly view? And I think this is a great way to start the video. So when God created marriage, it was between a man and a woman, and when they engaged in sex together, it is and was a unifying, almost like welding together of people and souls. It is the most intimate thing that a man and a woman can do together, and God created it. So it was to be done in God's terms and knowing God's intentions for sex and marriage. Sex was made to be good, and God created sex so we would enjoy it, but not just because it brought us like a physical or emotional pleasure, but because relationally, it unites a man and a woman over and over again. It's kind of like continually saying, I do, you're mine, you're mine. It's beautiful. Like, it is so beautiful. It is safe. It is secure. So that's kind of like a biblical look at sex. And is pleasure huge in a Christian biblical look towards sex? Absolutely, but it's not the main focus. It's kind of just like this really awesome byproduct of it. Now, when the Bible kind of talks about sex from a world point of view, and we see it, it's not, the Bible didn't even have to say it so much as we can just see it around us. It's pleasure-based, it's self-pleasure focused, and then on top of that, it can really objectify the person or whatever they're using to get to that point of pleasure because they're doing it selfishly. They want to feel it, which isn't wrong to desire to have that type of pleasure, but it's not supposed to be our primary focus, I guess. And like what I said, biblically, it is uniting a man and a woman in a marriage covenant, and it's tying themselves to each other. So in the world, if you don't have sex within marriage with just one partner, but with multiple people, you're dangerously tying yourself to so many different people, and that in turn could hurt someone doing something like that. So what does a biblical marriage look like for me and Kieran? It is God as our foundation and honoring Him in what we do in our marriage. That's through intimacy, that's through the decisions we make, that's through how we worship the Lord, that's through our actions. It's kind of like the Bible is our rock. It is our light, and it's something that we need to follow and pursue in our marriage, and that's really what biblical marriage looks like for me and Kieran. And it's a lifetime commitment. I couldn't get Excuse me. I couldn't get over the amount of people who sent me messages being like, can you talk more about how you and Kieran almost divorced? And I was like, where are you hearing this? Me and Kieran have never talked about divorce. We have never thought about divorce. We have never desired to divorce from each other. When we got married, we looked at it being like, this is forever, and divorce just isn't in our vocabulary. And I feel like I should just quickly say, both me and Kieran were raised in Christian homes. We dated, we saved ourselves for marriage. We were both virgins on our wedding night. And then fast forward how many years later, we've been married over 6 years, baby number 4 on the way. Okay, let's keep going. Good Marriage Bed Biblical Book. Super easy, a really solid read. It is called Sheet Music, and it is written really well. I think it covers extremely heavy topics, but it's all around the marriage bed from a Christian point of view. Highly recommend. I have it on Audible, and I would love to have it in like actual book form. Ever worried about not having enough previous experiences before marrying so young? I get this question a lot. Absolutely not. One of the greatest things about me and Kieran being young and then in that saving ourselves for each other is that we were just each other's. I had no thought towards previous partners for him, and then also vice versa. We can get into that comparison game. What do they think? What are they feeling? What's going through their heads? Where we relieved a lot of that by abstaining from sex with multiple partners before getting married. And the thing is, here's the kicker. Even if two virgins came together, they saved themselves for each other, they got married and they had sex, they wouldn't know if one wasn't doing very well or vice versa, because they were their onlys, you know, they were their only partners. So they have the ability to work together and learn together and serve each other in a way that is best for them, not what you've learned from previous partners or relationships or experiences, but you're just really focusing in on each other. I don't feel like I missed out by having other partners that I could practice on, or even being able to practice with Kieran before getting married. I loved going into marriage and feeling very fresh and new to intimacy and learning alongside Kieran. It was very, very special. One thing you tried to do before going intimate. This is really weird. It's really basic, but I really like getting things done before, in the sense of chores, cleaning, preparing for the next day. I like having a very calm, peaceful mind and just having things in my house orderly and happy before being intimate. And that might be kind of weird, but that's just how my mind works. And I find I enjoy it more if all these other things are really well taken care of. Do you teach your kids about sex? Yes. To a point where they can understand it. So I have a 2-year-old, a 3.5-year-old, and then a 5-year-old, and a baby on the way. This is what I think. If I'm not going ahead and taking the initiative, and Kieran as well, to teach our kids about sex from a young age, someone else is going to bring it up to them later on in life, and I probably won't like that. Starting simple now is great. I have not shared what full-on sex looks like, but we have talked about mine and Kieran's love for each other, our bond. We do things together that we wouldn't do with anyone else. We've given them a few kind of key ideas of what could happen, but they're still very young. So, and I think all kids at different ages are at different stages. So we're very careful with how we guide them through that. They know that sex is a thing. Do they know how it really works? No. But we're starting here while they're young, and as time goes on, more things will be talked about. Just got engaged at 20 years old. Any advice for preparing for life with a young husband? I was engaged and married at 19. So totally get like that whole young wife, young husband thing. Two things, like really seriously, two things that just come to my head right away. And number one is to be on the same page with finances. Have the same credit cards, the same bank account, combine all of that, work together as a unit when it comes to just money and how it's handled and where it's going. I think that's really, really great. Money can be such a huge issue in a marriage, and it can totally affect everything, including your intimate life. So making sure you guys are on the same page and just really being careful in that area of finances, money, so important. Secondly, and I tell everyone this, all wives, make your home your husband's paradise. And I'm not saying that in a sexual way, but please, If you want to take it as such, I won't stop you. There is nothing like a husband working all day and coming home and having that feeling of finally, or peace or rest. There's so many husbands that go home, and whether they're driving home and they're thinking, I don't want to go home, or they're at home and going, I don't want to be here after a long day of work. Us as wives have a huge ability and opportunity to bless our husbands by creating a home that's just gonna really benefit our husbands. That's gonna make them excited to come home. Our attitude will help in this. The way we curate a home and space helps with this. Our sex life can totally help with this. But I tell this seriously to everyone who gets engaged, make your home your husband's paradise. What a great thing to work on. What a great thing to put your time and effort into. And guess what? Guess what you're gonna get? A really happy, healthy husband. And that's what you want. Intimacy after birth. Tons of people ask this, and I think this needs to be talked about. You are not a failure if you give birth and you want to abstain from sex for over a month. You are not a failure. I got so many ladies in here being like, I'm only 2 weeks postpartum and my husband wants to be intimate and I don't think I can do it. I'm scared. Don't feel bad to communicate with your husband that you are not ready, whether it's physically because you went through a lot. You went through so much. Or mentally, sometimes mentally, it just takes you a little bit of time, and that's okay. Communicate that. For me and Kieran, I really give myself a lot of time because I'm a little person and I give birth to little babies, but it's still pretty intense. Really, really intense. And it really just, my body takes a beating. And postpartum, I give myself a lot of grace. Kieran gives me a lot of time. And it's something that, again, we talk about and we communicate about. We wait at least 6 weeks, at least. I'm someone, like postpartum, I bleed for over a month. It's just always been like that. So I want to really make sure mentally I'm there, physically I'm more than okay. And Kieran understands that. And we take it very slow. Very, very slow. This is a completely unpopular opinion, but I would have to say intimacy after labor, like once you've healed and everything, is some of the coolest. And the reason I say that is just because your body, like what I said before, it's been pregnant for so long, you've looked different, and then when you're postpartum and you're all like ready to go, you are a different person and you know it and your husband knows it, and it just brings about these really cool new feelings and emotions, and I really truly love it. I think it is so great. Almost the idea of it being the first time again. It's just, I find it extremely exciting. I know that's kind of totally an unpopular opinion, but that's just how I feel. How do you deal with not being in the mood for sex even if your partner is? Sorry if this is TMI. This is not TMI. You should have seen some of the questions I got. Whoa. No, this is fantastic. I've talked about this before, and I want to be careful and gracious. But if a husband is being lazy all day, not giving his wife the time of day, not talking to her, not feeding her love language, because everyone has like a very predominant love language, and then just expects later on in the day to be intimate with her and for her to be like all for it, that husband is wrong. I think that's disrespectful, and I personally don't think it's okay. And vice versa. If a wife, and this usually isn't the case, usually it really is the husband desiring for that, but sometimes the wife definitely has that desire for intimacy and the husband is kind of like, I'm not in the mood. That totally happens. I think one of the most beautiful and romantic and respectful things a man can do for his wife is prepare her for intimacy. Instead of just like off the cuff being like, let's have sex. I think what is so great is them communicating in the morning, let's have sex tonight, let's be intimate tonight, and then going forward throughout that day, each of them preparing themselves for that, and the husband really fueling the wife in her love language and romanticizing her towards the time when they will be intimate. Women need to be warmed up. We are so different from guys. We were made and wired just completely different, and because of that, we need different things. So like a simple example, me and Kieran going, you know what, it'd be great if we were intimate tonight. Sweet. I'm gonna go out of my way to do some things for Kieran, feeding his love language. His love language is words. So doing something like that is really cool. And then my main love languages is acts of service. Literally, Kieran doing the dishes warms my heart. I just love it. And then also physical touch and closeness. And that's not in a sexual way. That's in a rub my back, hold my hand kind of way. And Kieran will go out of his way to do that. But I don't think it's fair if the husband expects his wife to be in a certain mood. Whammo, let's have sex. I think we need time to prepare for it. And the husband really does need to prepare us for it. And guess what? This is the great thing. Your husband, if he goes ahead and goes out of his way to do such things for you, hold on, let me drink a little bit of water. Okay. When you guys are intimate, he's going to notice. He'll notice your mood change. He'll notice the way that you are. It'll be different, and that will give him more of a drive to be like, I'm gonna love on my wife more, because it really does help our sex life thrive. So that's my thought towards that. And I just want to say this is a conversation. So if you have any other thoughts, let me know in a comment down below. I'd love to hear it. Okay, a few more. Sex during pregnancy. Is it painful with your pelvic issues? This was literally the main question, and no, nor have we been told to abstain from sex. Something as intimate as being intimate, I thought we may not be allowed to do this. Like, would be allowed, but maybe not recommended to do this. But it actually was recommended for just what I'm going through, and it isn't painful. I had a lot of moms wanting to be pregnant again, but nervous about sex during pregnancy because they've had pelvic issues in the past. Personally, for me, I actually find it hugely pain relieving. So like, go figure. Where and how can an engaged Christian woman learn about sex in a safe and healthy way? There are so many women Christian YouTubers on here that give so much good advice. I mean, right off the cuff, I'm thinking Milena Ciciotti. She is freaking cool. Like, she's freaking cool. And she did a video talking about sex from like a Christian perspective. And I thought she shared so much great stuff. So I can link that video down below, as well as the podcast Java with Julie. She talks about some really intense, heavy subjects surrounding sex and intimacy, and I just think it's so great. It makes me want to start a podcast so I can start talking about like the hard stuff without YouTube being like, hey, we are totally fine with showing like nudity and sex in music videos, but if you want to talk about sex, then we're not okay. Kind of tired of YouTube doing that. It makes me want to be like, start a podcast, but then I need more time and I don't have more time, but maybe someday we'll see. Those two things is what I'm really thinking about. Look for Christian women on YouTube. They have so much good stuff to say and share, and then Java with Julie is a great podcast that could really help you. Last one, do you take initiative when you and hubby get intimate, or do you prefer him hinting first? Kieran usually takes initiative. Again, guys are just different. And I am thinking about a million things in my day, and I can tell you that probably none of them are intimacy. That's nothing against our relationship or Kieran, it's just how I as a woman am. So it really takes Kieran, and again, him loving on me and romanticizing me throughout the day. Kieran does work at home, but there are guys that work outside of the house that text their wives, that call their wives, check up on their wives during the day, and I think that's a great way to stay connected to them through the day, so at night intimacy is just really easy and awesome. But Kieran is definitely the initiator, because I'm thinking about so many other things, but I love when he does, because he pulls me out of like my routine and rut, and he's like, Sarah, let's just be together and let's honor the Lord and just love on each other. And I'm like, oh yeah, like I do like that. It's just sometimes I flip and forget how much I do. And I think about all these other things. So Kieran just kind of really pulls me back and is like, let's hang out. And I think that's important to have at least one person in the relationship doing something like that, so you can establish and continue a healthy sex life. Okay, so that's it. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. Again, any further comments, just leave them down below. I probably can't get to all of them, but there's so many people that will kind of respond to other people's questions, and I think it's just great, like the conversations that happen in the comment section. Sex is so great when done in the context that God created it for, and it's something that needs to be talked about, encouraged about, and challenged about. So I hope this video was just kind of interesting to watch and listen to. So I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!